Hello soulmate, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time of seeing my channel, thank you for stopping by. So we're going to be learning how to make this short dress with side gathers. If this is one you're interested in, please join me while we get started. Okay, so on my pattern paper where I already marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip and shoulder to the full length, and I drew a straight line across. So I labeled the lines. Then from the starting line, I marked 7 inches, which is my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I came down and also marked the 7 inches at the bust point area. So from that point, I marked 1 inch below. And then for the neck depth, I marked 3 inches width and 3 inches depth. Then connected it to the curve, although this will not be needed. So from that 3 inches width, I connected it with the 1 inch I came down with to get my shoulder slope. So I got my armhole depth by dividing my bust measurement by 6 and adding 1.5, which is 7. So from the 1 inch slope that I came down from the shoulder line, I marked 7 inches from there, and then I drew a straight line which became my chest line. So I'm using my marker to make this visible for us to see. So now I'm going to get my armhole measurement. That 7 inches that I had there, I'm going to divide it by 2 and mark the midpoint. From there, I'm going to come in by 0.5. Then mark my bust measurement divided by 4 at the chest line, and then use my armhole curve to connect these lines together just like I did. So now I'm going to take my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 7 inches divided by 2. I'm having 3.5. So I'm going to mark that 3.5 on the bust line, the on the bust line, waistline, and the hip line. Okay, so I'm going to make use of my ruler to connect this line together like this. Then I'm going to come to the waist measurement, the point where I mark the waist, and I'm going to mark 0.75 on both sides. Then coming to the under bust, I mark 1 inch on both sides. I came down from the waist by 4 inches, and I connected them together from the under bust down to that 4 inches mark below the waist. So I'm just going to connect them together like this. Then now I'm going to impute the body measurements. Okay, so my bust measurement, I'm going to put it adding 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. The under bust measurement, I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to take the measurement of the dart, add it as well, and add 1.5 inch allowance, just like I'm doing right now. Same thing with the waist. I marked the waist, which I have 6.5. Then I added the 1.5 inches for the dart, and I added 1.5 inches for the allowance. So I'm just going to connect them together like I'm doing right now, and I'm going to make use of my marker to make it very visible for us. I hope you understand what I'm doing. If you don't understand, you can leave your question in the comment section. Okay, so I also went to the hip point and marked the hip measurement. Then I added 1.5 inch for the allowance. Then I used the ruler as well to connect them to meet the waist measurement. Then going down to the full length, which is the full length measurement, I just connected that line down. I took the same measurement I have for the hip and I put it there, and then draw a straight line to meet the full length measurement. Okay, so after that, I'm going to come up above the chest line. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to label that. I just labeled it. That's the chest line. So I'm going to come up by 1.5 inches, and I'm going to use my ruler to draw a straight line there. So that 1.5 inches is going to be my guide. That is how long I want it to be. So I'm going to draw my nipple to nipple line to meet that line from the center as well. Then I'm going to come in on both sides by 0.75. Then I'm going to connect them to meet that bust point where I have my nipple to nipple line. So at this point, I'm going to connect it with my curve to meet the armhole, rather, to meet the armhole at that side. And then I'm going to take that small dart intake from that place, and I'm going to add it to that chest line at the side, so that I can make up for the part that is going to be taken off. Then I'm going to connect it to the waist again. So for the other side, that is the center front, I'm going to come in by 1 inch, and then I'm going to come down by 3 inches. 1 inch from the inside and 3 inches for the depth. Then I'm going to connect it like I'm doing right now. That is because of the style. Okay, so now for me to get the sleeve measurement, look at what I'm doing. From the shoulder, I came in by 1 inch, and I took the measurement for that side so that I can use it to make my sleeve later. So now we're going to be making the gathers. I'm going to come down from the waist measurement by 2 inches. I'm going to mark it around there, and then from the center, I'm going to come in by 2 inches. Then I'm going to draw a straight line to meet from the waistline to the full length. that part where I marked that 2 inches, I came up by 1.5. Then I'm connecting it to meet the 2 inches I came down below the waistline like this with a curve. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and use my marker to make it visible, connecting them together like this. So at this point, I'm going to take my measurements and measure the space I have in between that part, then divide them into equal sides. So I'm using 1.5 inches to divide them, just like I'm doing right now, and I'm going to use my marker to make it visible. After dividing them, I'm going to go ahead and label it. Okay, so I labeled it 1 to 6, indicating front on it, so that when I want to make use of it for my slash and spread, I'll be able to differentiate it. Okay, so now at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay guys, if you're finding this tutorial very useful, please ensure to like, comment and share. Also subscribe to our channel and leave your notification bell turned on so that each time we upload new videos, you can be notified. Okay guys, I'm going to be using a slash and spread technique to achieve that gathers, and because of that, I'm also going to be cutting those areas that I marked in 6 parts open. Okay, and then I realized that I did not add my bust dart. My shoulder to waist measurement for the front is 16 inches and shoulder to waist measurement for the back is 14.5. So the difference between that is 1.5, and I'm going to take it from this point, from the bust point from the front, and come down by 1.5, then connect it to the nipple to nipple measurement that I marked earlier. So I forgot to add that, I just remembered and I just did. So ensure you mark it before you cut it. Okay, so now we're going to cut the back pattern just like we did for the front. I've gone ahead to mark the bust line, the waistline, the hip line and the full length. Okay, ensure to take note of your shoulder to waist measurement for the back, because they are not the same. Okay guys, I apologize for the noisy background, please just bear with me. So now I'm going to mark the nipple to nipple measurements like I'm doing right this, and I'm connecting it to the straight line from the chest line to the hip line. Then from the waist point, I'm going to mark 0.75, and I'm going to come down from the waist by 4 inches like I did for the front, and then connect them together like so. So after this, I'm going to be marking the body measurement. Remember that we're not going to be using the neck width and depth. I'm just putting it there for guidance. So at this point, I'll be taking my body measurement. So on the center back on the waistline, I came in by 0.5, and I used my ruler to connect these lines like this. This is just to help eliminate any form of zipper bulging. So from that point where I marked 0.5, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4, added the measurement for the dart, which is 1.5, and added 1.5 for seam allowance. Then for the hip, I also added the body measurement, adding 1.5 seam allowance, and the same thing for the bust point. I added the 1.5 allowance, then connected them together. For the full length, I'm using the same measurement I have for the hip area, putting it there and connecting it together. Please note that the body measurements are divided by 4. Okay, so from the center back, I came in by 2 inches, and then from the waist, I came down by 2 inches as well. So after marking this, I came from that point where I marked 2 inches on the hip line, and I came up by 1.5, connected it to that point where I marked 2 inches below the waistline. I did it connected with a curve. Okay, this is just me repeating the same thing I did for the front pattern. So just like I did for the front pattern, I shared the parts where I'm going to be having the gathers into equal parts, and I went ahead to label it 1 to 6. So at this point, I'm going to come up to the chest line and then come down below that chest line by 0.75, and then I'm going to connect it to meet the armhole. Okay, after doing that, I'm just going to take the measurement of the shoulder to the chest line where I'm going to be having my sleeve, so I can use it for the sleeve. So at this point, I'm done drafting the pattern. I'll just go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so at this point, I'm done cutting it. I just went ahead to label it center backs, side back, center front, side front. So I'm done cutting this part, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the collar, which is at the bust area of the gown. So this is me just positioning the two part of the front and using my tracing wheel to trace the top area of the bust so that I can use this to create a collar. That is me trying to achieve the exact curve that is there. So the way I traced it, you can actually do this with your pencil or marker pen. If you do not have a tracing wheel, it works perfectly well. So after tracing it, I removed it and then used my marker to trace out what I have already traced from the pattern earlier. So after doing that, I will just go ahead and take my measuring tape and measure 2 inches, because that is going to be the depth of the collar. So I'm just measuring 2 inches below it like this. Then after doing this, I'm going to connect it just like this. This is just to maintain the curve. So for me to be sure that okay, they are actually lapping well, I'm just going to fold that area. But I noticed that I was having issue folding it, so what I went to do is to just slash it out for me to be able to join it properly. So after slashing it, I went ahead to place it properly well and then use my tape to hold it well, to secure it and prevent it from moving. So after that, I just used my marker to trace it well to ensure that the curve is actually straight and smooth. So at this point, I've gotten the exact measurement I want to use for my collar, and I'll go ahead and cut it out. This is me trying to ensure that the measurement is accurate. So I just took the front part that I have, closed the dart, and then placed the collar properly to see if it actually fits, and it was actually correct. So I took it aside and then I took a small piece of paper like this. I folded it just the way I did. This is me trying to create that sleeve. So now at the folded area, the top where it's folded is going to be the shoulder, which is going to be straight. The measurement I had for the front and back shoulder to the point where the bust is going to be, and for the back, the point where the chest line is going to be, was a total of 13.75. So I divided that into 2 and I marked that point from the shoulder, which I drew a straight line. So from the shoulder, I came in with a width of 4.5 and connected it with a curve. After doing that, I connected it together like this and cut it out. This is what I have. So the place that is standing straight is the shoulder. That is the part that is closed, or the folded area. Okay, so now this is me taking my pencil and my ruler trying to slash it open, because that place has a little bit of puff or gathers, and for me to achieve that, I have to do a little bit of slashing and spreading in that area. So that is what I am doing right now. So after slashing it and spreading it out, I'll take another piece of pattern paper and then place it properly, putting it in the position I want it to be, that is enough gathers that I want for it. So after doing that, I'm just going to add half an inch all around it, which I'll be using for the joining, which is what I did with my marker right now, and then I'm going to cut it out. So when you're doing this, ensure you do this accurately. This is me just sketching, just to show you how I went about doing this. So once I'm done, I'm going to remove the pin and remove the other part of the paper. So the new parts that I have now is going to be the correct one, which I'll be cutting on the fabric. So by the time I pleat that top area, is going to give me that puff, and I'm going to be adding a little elastic at that point to achieve what I want. So this is the part where I'm going to be doing the gathers. I went ahead to arrange it on this paper from front to back, just like I did, and I left spaces of 1 inch amongst them. So at the center, I left 2 inches spaces, and I added half an inch at the top for joining allowance. So after that, I went ahead to cut it out, just like I'm doing right now. So after cutting it, I already have the part I'm going to be having for one side. So you're going to cut it in 2 to have 2 sides. Okay, so this is it. I'm just going to label it front here, and the other part is the back. So that is it for one side of the gathers. When you cut 2 pieces, you have 2 sides. So by the time you pleat it or gather it at that top, you'll be having that exact effect that you want. So at this point, we are done with this tutorial. If you find this very helpful, please ensure to like, subscribe, and also leave a comment. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video.